Hello, so this is part 2 of the beginner fashion design mini course, and in this video we're going to be developing the collage we made in the first video and creating that into lots of different designs, and then by the end of the video we're going to finish with a final design. And you can go on to make this yourself, or you can just explore different fashion design ideas and options, as this is still a really fun creative activity on its own. So let's just get straight on into the video, and don't forget to have your collage that you made in the last video handy. So unlike traditional fashion design that's taught at all of the top fashion schools like London College of Fashion, where I graduated from, upcycling takes a much more problem-solving approach, in which case it's best to find the garment you want to upcycle first before you create your design, as opposed to creating your design from scratch from a concept. So that's what we're about to do. We're going to go on Vinted and find our material first, and then we can create designs from these materials. So as I said, when looking at the mood board, I have a lot of tartan, blues and a lot of drapey fabrics. So this is a good place to start, and then you can always develop your search from there. So I'm going to start by searching for tartan, and I want to keep this in a sea kind of theme. So I'm going to search for more darker colours. So at this point, I would just kind of scroll through and see if there's anything that's kind of inspiring me. I like the kind of colour palette on this skirt from Topshop. It's £1.50. So I'm just gonna basically create a bank of lots of different ideas at the moment. So I'm just gonna heart the ones that I like, and then I will go to my liked folder. Now I'm going to search for some of the other ideas, so maybe some more of the lightweight fabric. So I might search for a chiffon dress or something along these lines. Garments that inspired me from Vinted, and these are the ones I felt most drawn to. I feel like they fit my mood board the most. I have some tartan pieces here inspired by the Vivienne Westwood and also this tartan shoe. And then I also have some purple notes, as I kind of was drawn to that from this lip and again from this dress. Then we have some black lace, as this really inspired the lace idea with all of these holes in between the fingers, and then also the black. And then I also picked out this iridescent skirt, kind of inspired by this iridescent purple lip. So these are kind of the initial ones that I was drawn to, but they're not necessarily the final ideas. It's just a really good place to start, and then as you develop your designs you might find you need other garments as well. The first thing I do is I kind of jot down any really strong initial ideas from the mood board and also from these images, as these are the pieces that we potentially are going to be upcycling. So I start usually with the garment, so I'll be looking here and seeing, is there anything that is immediately springing to mind that I could change this into, and I'll just jot some notes down. So immediately here I'm thinking we can shorten this skirt completely and maybe add some like really lovely little draped ruffles all the way around it. Another idea is this is like a cotton dress, is that this could be turned into a really lovely corset. We could also reinvent this dress into a new dress, and I do really love these sleeves, so there could be some form of top. Moving on to this skirt below, there's actually a lot of fabric to work with here, which is brilliant. So we could make this into a bodysuit. We could also make this into another kind of ruffle skirt. I'm kind of thinking of layering with this, as there is quite a lot of fabric to be used. And then if we move on to this dress here, we already have some ruffles, so we could really utilize these ruffles. I feel like there's something really lovely in this as well that kind of reminds me of ruffles, so I think it would be really lovely to incorporate some of them. This is also a really lovely chiffon material, so I'm thinking of something a bit more floaty. This could also be really lovely in a little cami top. Then moving on to this lace piece here. I love the way this has no kind of structure to it. It's just very draped. So we could keep that and potentially take off the top of this, turn it into a dress, maybe strapless. Again, there's a lot of fabric here due to the fact it's not very structured, so we could also create a lot of layers with this one. And I'm immediately envisioning some kind of gathering with the lace. And onto this final tartan dress. This is a little bit more fitted, so we'd have slightly less fabric, but again, I feel like this top here could really turn nicely into a little cami top. We could also create a really lovely jumpsuit out of this. So these are some initial ideas that I've just jotted down, and now I can start to sketch based on these ideas. I think a really good place to start when you're sketching is to kind of jot out a base silhouette that you want to create, and then after that we can go in with the detailing and kind of develop the design a bit further. So that's why I start with these initial jot down of ideas, because now we can create 4 different designs, say, of a draped ruffle skirt, and then we can pick our favorite and develop that further. Now I've done 3 kind of initial ideas inspired by this iridescent skirt here, and now what I'm going to do is refer back to the mood board and see if there's any elements I would like to kind of add, or there's anything that's inspiring me to kind of develop this design. So I am initially kind of drawn to all of this beading work here. I think this is really beautiful, and so I could definitely do some kind of design development with beading on some of these skirts. I also really love the texture of this. It kind of feels like webbing a little bit. And then, as always, I'm always being drawn back to this tartan, so maybe there's a potential for me to pull in one of these other garments to the top, or for a tight or something like that. So I'm going to start with developing the ideas with the beading and also with the webbing over here and see where we get to. So looking at the 3 of these designs, this is kind of like a bubble skirt that I've designed where it's like a dropped waist and then a bubble, and there's like a little bit of ruffle at the bottom. This center one is more of an asymmetric skirt design with some ruffles going across both sides and then a little drape. And then this one on the far left is a kind of mini skirt, and then I've done some ruffles diagonally across the front of it and then some ruffle drapes on either side. So I feel like this one is the strongest design, so this is the one that I'm going to develop with the kind of webbing idea and also the beading idea. So I'm just going to make a note of that just so I don't forget what I'm developing, and then I'm kind of going to do 3 further designs down here with these 2 elements in mind. So I'm thinking that this layer underneath, inspired by the webbing, could be either lace or some kind of textured material that's a bit sheer, and this will make the design slightly more sexy, and also it will add different variations to the fabric. And I also think this will look really pretty with the ruffles layered over top in this kind of iridescent fabric here. Another option that I'm thinking of is to kind of add some form of beaded trim to the bottom of the ruffles. So I'm just going to sketch that out now. I think adding the trim here could look really beautiful. Also, it could be really interesting to bead these tassel ruffles that are falling down either side, and we could actually incorporate a few more of those as well coming off the front and the back. And this kind of design is really reminding me of like a jellyfish, so it's really tying into that underwater feeling without being too obvious in design. I'm just going to make a note of the beaded trim, as sometimes it's quite hard to see what you mean through a drawing that's a quick sketch, but I will just add a little darker area just to show that that's what I mean. So the last idea that I'm thinking of is turning this into more of a web design by making this fabric stick onto the body, and then these will add a bit more volume to the rest of the skirt, but this will kind of create that mermaid-esque tail. So I'm gonna comment that this will be a really fitted bodycon silhouette. and then these will add fluidity. So these are the developed skirt ideas. I am really enjoying them. There's definitely scope to develop some other skirt ideas based on the other dresses, and I would really recommend that you sit and really develop each of the garments you've pinned before you make a decision. For the purpose of this demonstration, I've decided to just go with this for the skirt design, and I'll now develop a top design, just so you can get the gist of how I would go about doing it. But in reality, it would be incredible if you sat and kind of developed each of these, as I feel that you'd make a much more informed decision of the one that you really, really love in the end. So I really love the middle design. I feel like this one would be really successful in this fabrication. And also I do like the idea of kind of incorporating a lace into this design, so I might draw another one now where I've combined the two of these ideas together. So in order to get a feel for the different fabrications, I'm just going to do a kind of brief color in, just to kind of get an idea of which colors I enjoy together and whether I feel that it's successful to put the lace with the iridescent fabric. I've just really briefly coloured this in just to get an idea, and I've just left a few gaps to differentiate this purple between the black. So I do really like this concept and I really like the design. I'm now going to add where I would kind of add some beading. I'm actually considering maybe it would be really lovely to drape some beads across the skirt following the kind of ruffle asymmetric drape. And if we go back to our mood board, there's a lot of pearl looking inspired beads on this board, and I think that could look really beautiful to drape those across, or some kind of sparkling bead across here. So I'm just gonna draw on where I would kind of drape the beads initially, but obviously this could change later down the line. It's just good to get a rough idea of what we're trying to create. So I've just added on these tiny little circles to represent the beads draped across here, and then a couple here, a little string of drapes going across. And I think this is really successful. So I'm actually really happy with this now. And now I'm going to move on to the top design and see how we can cohesively create a whole look. So we're just going to place this to the side for the moment, and we're going to move on to designing the top. Now, I've kind of mentioned from a few of these different garments about making a cami top, like from this one and also this one. And with this one, I thought that layers could be really, really nice to explore. And I think I'm going to start with this dress, as it already has a really nice bust shape. So this is always a good place to start, and it's definitely a positive of upcycling, is you can kind of incorporate elements that already exist on the garments into your new design. So I'm gonna start by incorporating the bust, and I'm just gonna draw that out into a cami top, so we'd be shortening it to around here. Okay, so here is the initial really basic silhouette that I'm thinking would pair really nicely with the skirt. And now I'm going to go back to my mood board and see how I could develop this design further. So if we go back to the mood board, I do really, really love how some of the panels on this blue-green dress are sheer. I think this is really beautiful, and the trim they've added at the bottom adds a really nice finish to the edges, and I think this could look really beautiful on a cami top. So I'm thinking we kind of split up the cami top somehow and utilize both the tartan fabric as well as a mesh or lace or sheer fabric. So I'm just going to draw out a couple different ideas of how I can split up the cami top into different fabrications. Okay, so I've drawn out some initial ideas as to where I would place the different fabrics, and I'm really feeling drawn to this middle one. It kind of feels like if I did a different fabrication here that it would almost look like a corset style. So I'm gonna choose this one to explore a bit more and expand on, and pick where I would place the different fabrics. So I'm just gonna sketch this out again, and then we can explore how we will develop this design. Okay, so here is that design drawn out, and I feel like we should definitely make this bust the tartan fabric. And then this center fabric, I feel like this could look really cool in a more transparent or translucent fabric. So I'm thinking maybe a mesh could look really nice, or a lace. And then at the bottom again, it would be good to come back to the tartan to kind of tie it together. So I'm actually really pleased with this, and I feel like this actually doesn't need to be developed any further in terms of the fabrication. And this, I think this centerpiece will be either a purple or a black. And now I feel like it would be really nice to incorporate some of the beaded elements we've done on the skirt into the top design. So I'm thinking there could be some really nice draping that comes from either side here and here. And this could go all the way down like so. It could come from this center point here in the middle. And it could also have a really nice trim along this triangular bit point in the center. So I'm just going to draw that out again and colour it in to demonstrate what I mean.
Did you win the Red Bull? To be what? Did you win the Red Bull? Did? Yeah.
Okay, so that is the final design. I'm really happy with this, and if we just place the two together, so our original skirt design and also this top design, and see how we feel about the two placed together. I actually really like the way this looks, and I feel like it represents the mood board really nicely actually. So I'm now going to sketch this out into a final illustration. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this little fashion design mini course, and do send through all of your final illustrations to the group. We'd love to see them. Thanks, bye.